Hi, my name is JD Schultz, and I will be presenting Hypocrisy within the Entertainment Industry, the double standard concerning the commercial viability between musicians and actors. To start off, I'd like to give a little bit of context into the problem that my presentation would like to delve into. In the wake of the #MeToo movement that started gaining traction in late 2017, some Hollywood actors in the film and television industry were publicly accused of sexual assault and/or sexual harassment, most notably being Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, and Harvey Weinstein. The public backlash that these individuals received ended up with them being blacklisted from their entire industry, as well as them losing out on their lucratively successful careers. Simultaneously, actors weren't the only ones targeted by the Me Too movement. Musicians were as well, with most notable musicians being targeted as Jose Onfroy, known as XXXTentacion, Daniel Hernandez, 6ix9ine, and Chris Brown. However, while I was looking at this, I realized that the commercial viability between these two parties is ultimately different, with musicians faring much better economically than these actors were. So, which led me to starting my research paper and my presentation. So, to give a little bit of insight into this topic, I did some research on the Me Too movement and the media coverage of this movement. And what they were saying about actors and musicians, how both of these parties had committed these violent and/or sexual crimes, allegedly or non-allegedly, and their careers thereafter, and just the public backlash that they had all received. I also found an article from the Oxford Research Department discussing the idea of the criminal celebrity, that being someone who is already famous before these crimes were either committed or outed to the public. And it dives into the idea of cognitive dissonance within their fan base, as their fans are torn between the admiration they had for them previously, before knowing of the crimes, and the moral condemnation that they feel they must levy towards the criminal celebrity after knowing of these crimes. This leads me to my research question, or more so, that my study will analyze and focus on an explanation for the U.S.'s hypocrisy concerning the commercial success of those in the film industry and those in the music industry who have committed violent and/or sexual crimes. My methodology consists of looking at multiple timelines from multiple articles of all of the 6 noted individuals, that being split between actors and musicians, as well as analyzing the musicians' Spotify streaming records to see how the Me Too movement affected their commercial viability, as well as actors and the amount of roles and movies they were in thereafter the Me Too movement coverage attacked them as well. So my findings and results are split in between 2 sections: musicians who have committed and/or allegedly committed these violent intersexual crimes, and actors and producers who have committed / allegedly committed violent and/or sexual crimes. Starting off with musicians. The first one we're going to be looking at is XXXTentacion, or simply known as Jose Onfroy. The crimes he had committed were he had allegedly beat his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend at the time, and trapped her in an apartment room for 2 days after attacking her, barring her from any health treatment that she might have received. The commercial success of XXXTentacion led to him having a combined over 2 billion streams on Spotify from his top 3 singles alone, as well as being publicly endorsed from notable artists or in music industry influencers such as Kendrick Lamar, Adam22, Ski Mask, Slump God, and even his own record label, Capitol Records. The next musician we're going to be looking at is Daniel Hernandez, or simply known as 6ix9ine. The crimes he had committed, was sexual misconduct with a minor. This occurred when he was 18 and she was 13. Racketeering of firearms related to gang activity, which ultimately led him into a federal prison. However, though he is in prison now, his commercial success is still staggering, with a combined over 843 million streams on Spotify from his top 3 singles alone. He as well has public endorsement from from notable musicians such as Nicki Minaj, for example. The last musician we're going to be discussing is Chris Brown. The crimes he has committed, he had assaulted then girlfriend Rihanna in 2009, which most people are familiar with. Then after this assault, he had a history of violent behavior, going off and attacking people in clubs, as well as having violent outbursts during interviews if discussed about his violent behavior, funny enough. He also threatened to assault another one of his ex-girlfriends, Karuki Tran, who ended up filing a restraining order against him for, I think, 5 years ago. The commercial success of Chris Brown, he has a combined total of over 637 million streams on Spotify from his top 3 singles alone. This may dwarf in comparison to the other 2 artists. However, most of Chris Brown's commercial success came in when he was most popular during the early to late 2000s. However, these numbers are still staggering. He continues to collaborate with current artists on popular tracks today, such as he collaborated with notable musician Lil Dicky on a song called Freaky Friday that reached #1 in Billboard last year. Moving on to actors and producers, the first one we're going to be discussing is Kevin Spacey. So the crimes Kevin Spacey had allegedly committed or were accused of was sexual assault and sexual misbehavior on multiple accounts. Most notably from Anthony Rapp, who said that Kevin Spacey assaulted him when he was 14. The Old Vic Theater, where he was an artistic director for 10 years. 22 people came out saying that they were sexually harassed by him and or that Kevin Spacey had committed sexual misbehavior. As well as this same behavior was found on the House of Cards set, which is a very popular show on Netflix that he was a part of. So his commercial success thereafter was that he was blacklisted from his industry, he was fired from his hit show House of Cards, his movie Gore is on an indefinite hiatus and yet to be released. He was replaced for his roles in All the Money in the World, and the only movie to come out since the Me Too movement, that coverage on him, that being Billionaire Boys Club, tragically bombed at the box office with only $287 being made in its first 2 days. He was also dropped by his agency and his publicist very near after the coverage of the Me Too movement. The next actor we're going to be looking at is Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was accused of drugging and sexually assaulting multiple women, and eventually was convicted on 3 counts of assault and was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in jail. The commercial success of Bill Cosby after his sentence and after this movement was that he was, as well as Kevin Spacey, was blacklisted from the film industry. He was removed from the Hall of Fame in the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, where he had a statue erected in his honor that was subsequently taken down. He was also his hit sitcom from the late 80s and early 90s, The Cosby Show, was taken off of circulation. Going on to producer Harvey Weinstein, which is noted as starting the entire Me Too movement coverage, being the first of them to fall. The crimes that he'd committed, he was accused of rape and sexual assault by multiple women, and the commercial success of him thereafter was that he was blacklisted from the industry and was ousted from his own production company, which the company later then filed for bankruptcy. So this all leads to my analysis. It remains evident that our society does not levy the same punishment towards musicians who have committed or allegedly committed these crimes, as opposed to actors who have committed these crimes as well, or allegedly have committed these crimes. Which leads me to the one big question that I'm sure is on everyone's head: why is this the case? So I found an article on Psychology Today written by Dr. Sharam Heshmat, who describes music as a kind of language of emotion that can trigger a deeply nostalgic emotional experience, since it often arouses in listeners powerful feelings of sadness or joy. Heshmat also compares music to a cocktail of recreational drugs that we ingest through the ear to stimulate a mass of pleasure circuits at once, simply stating that when it comes to music, people have a more neurological and emotional connection to music, as opposed to theater and film, as theater and film seem to lack or tend to have a less intense or powerful emotional and neurological connection to audiences compared to music. The actor thus has an indirect connection with the audience, and producers like Harvey Weinstein have an even less connection since they're in the background. The musician, on the other hand, has a direct and intimate involvement with the audience, since the lyrics and the rhythm of the music usually reflects lived experiences and perceptions that are very relatable. This difference in the level of emotional attachment possibly explains why the public is less forgiving of an actor's misbehaviors compared to those of a musician. To simply put it, people connect more with musicians than they do with actors, simply because musicians give a more real and lived experience, while actors are normally playing a character. Fans of the actor will more so fall in love or appreciate the character that they're playing, not necessarily the person. So in conclusion, the research findings and analysis show an underlying pattern of discrimination in how the U.S. society responds to misdeeds by musicians and actors. This is odd, especially for a country that advocates for equal treatment to all. While it is possible that this intriguing social phenomenon may be due in part to differences in the emotional and neurological connection that humans have with music rather than theater or film, further studies are needed to fully understand this peculiar U.S. behavior. Thank you.